I can't believe I'm going to be writing 2 devotionals on Judas. I had no intentions of writing a devotional on Judas. And then I wrote one on Herod. So it's kind of funny how like what I planned and then what, the Lord had in mind were 2 totally different things.
And the fact that you seem to be focused on villains.
Yeah, evidently.
All right, I am holding this. Look at what this is. This is The Chosen, 40 Days with Jesus. Look what it says on the bottom. Book 2.
Woo!
Because we're shooting now season 2 of The Chosen, which means that we're officially a multi-season show. And this is now officially a sequel to the first book. The first book has been fantastically received, beyond our expectations. It's been a bestseller on Amazon. It's done beautifully well through the app, and so we've been really overwhelmed by the response to the devotional book. I think one of the first questions that many of the readers have is, how is this a little bit different, or is it different from the first book? Why should I read book 2 when book 1 was so fulfilling?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all,
want to take it?
Yeah. So format's the same. The vibe is the same. It's still Jesus's words and his way through the eyes of his followers, which is how we're doing the show and how we're personally being most impacted and just seeing things from a new perspective. But the way it is different, which it is a shift, is that instead of it being mainly about his followers and kind of introducing us to his followers, it's a lot about his teachings and what he wanted from his followers and what it looked like to follow him. What does that even mean? And for some of them, it was super literal, like they're dropping nets and boats and they're getting up and leaving their lives to follow him. But there were lots of people he came into contact with who made him Lord of their lives without actually walking around. So what does it look like for us that we're not dropping nets and walking, but what does it look like to really follow? So that's kind of the different shift.
When you say not walking around, you mean there were people who made him Lord of their lives, but weren't actual
physically following him from town to town
for his travels.
Yeah, that was a really unique role of the disciples. And so this book is actually, what does it look like for us as disciples? What did it look like for the disciples after he left? It was, what does it really mean to follow Jesus with your life? So that's the focus of this one.
Who was one of the people that you were interested, Kristen, in exploring? Was there a story that kind of stuck out to you, or a person from the Gospels that you thought, yeah, that's my person?
I had some people in mind and some ideas in mind, and I just got stuck on Judas and ended up writing a devotional on Judas. And then it was so funny because it was complete, but I just kept thinking about it. I kept thinking about the dynamic of the relationship and all the implications that had and how that affects us today. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to be writing 2 devotionals on Judas. I had no intentions of writing a devotional on Judas. And then I wrote one on Herod. So it's kind of funny how like what I planned and then what, the Lord had in mind were 2 totally different things.
And the fact that you seem to be focused on villains.
Yeah, evidently. And, but those impacted me personally.
Well, the Herod one actually was really interesting, a really different take. Talk about that. Because the whole notion of how we don't relate to him at all, but you found a way to actually relate to him.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy that we shouldn't relate to. But it was really interesting reading about him because he was drawn to John the Baptist. And here he's Herod. That relationship and that dynamic and how it went so woefully wrong and how his, decision, how it affected everything, and same with Judas. And so I guess that was just the continuing thing I kept thinking about is how the decisions of, look at Matthew and Peter and Mary versus some of these other people that had every bit as much of a chance to follow and had the information and had the, the dialogue, and it just went completely sideways.
Herod was supposed to be a religious leader and didn't follow. So it sounds like what you're saying is that in as you were exploring it, that maybe your understanding of them shifted a little bit. Like maybe it's easy to villainize them, but when you dig into it a little bit more, you want to know why they didn't accept.
Right. For that one, the Herod one ends up kind of being about fear of man and people pleasing. So that was just an interesting take that I just feel like the Lord gave to me because, who comes up with that?
Yeah, Herod trying to please all the people that were around him and honor the request of a really dysfunctional little girl. And yeah, it was just an interesting, like, what would have caused him to do that. And it ended up being, well, he was trying to please everybody and keep everybody.
Yeah, ends up being one of the most detested people in history. So that backfired.
Right. So that's what's I think the core of these devotional books and the core of each entry that we do is finding the connection between us and these people who lived 2,000 years ago. But you found the connection, which was Herod's motivation for doing some really awful things is on a larger scale similar to what our motivations are for doing things. And maybe we don't, execute one of Christ's heroes today, but the motivations are sometimes the same. It's a drastic fear of what others think of us, a drastic desire to people please. And that's what you found as you were digging into
like so many. We don't identify with their bio necessarily, but we can always identify with their predicament.
So, Chosen, 40 Days with Jesus, Book 2. One of the biggest things that's different is the cover. It's now a nice shade of navy. I'm a little bit colorblind, so this is navy. Each book will have a different color, but we want to maintain kind of the simplicity of just, the Chosen 40 Days with Jesus. That's ultimately what this is about. Each devotional book, even though there will be subtle differences, and even though we will be getting further and further into the Gospels and into the people that encountered Jesus, because we believe that if you can see Jesus through the eyes of those who actually met him, you can be changed and transported and transformed in the same way that they were. However, ultimately, each book is going to approach these stories the same way. It's 40 days with Jesus. And so Book 2 picks up where Book 1 left off. And I hope you will be as impacted by reading it as we were in writing it.